Welcome to My French Web Radio, the radio of the Alliance Française of Malaysia, based in KL and Penang. Today, you're listening to an episode of the program 5 Questions to 5 Questions à. Enjoy! Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Hello, everyone. Bonjour, Tuk Chong, and welcome to My French Web Radio.
Yes, thank you.
Today, I will be asking 5 questions to Cheong Wong, a notorious cinephile and a cultural personality in Kuala Lumpur and across Malaysia, I believe. Thank you very much for accepting to share your story and passion for cinema with us today.
Thank you very much, Asma. Actually, it's a very welcome event for me because it's a chance to come back and look at Alliance Française Center again, of which I have made many fond memories.
I'm glad that you're back. So, before we talk about cinema, I would like to know, could you tell us more about yourself, about your professional experiences, your travels, and all of the events which made you nowadays a cinema lover and a great cinephile?
It's been a long journey, I must say, because I am like so many years old. But I remember the very formative time was when I actually went to the UK to study, and there it was a chance for me to see many films. They were both commercial and non-commercial. Commercial ones, of course, which we did not normally get to see here, including foreign films, and also the non-commercial ones, which were like art house. And because in the UK there were a lot of centers, there were a lot of cinemas that catered to cinephiles, the kind that show, like I said, art house cinemas. So I just enjoyed it all. And it was not just entertainment, not just enjoyment of cinema, but it was also a chance to get to know another form, another way of expression, cinematic expression in non-commercial terms. Films like which did not really set out to entertain, as so much as to let people know about a director's point of view, values, lessons, including, and also style. So it was really an experience to being exposed to those films, and it also included, of course, French films, I must say. Yes.
We'll talk to this later. So you mentioned your passion about cinema, and I wanted to talk about the Kelab Seni Filem. You've been involved in this cinema club for many years now, and I recently learned that you were also involved with the Malaysian Public Library Research and Development Center, which has very recently reopened in a new place now at Wisma Help in Bukit Damansara. So reading this, I came to notice that basically sharing knowledge, history and culture and making them accessible to the broader public are definitely at the core of your main activities nowadays. So I was wondering, how were these two initiatives born, and how could you describe the cultural scene and maybe the cinema scene in KL today?
Okay, when I came back from the UK, because at that time Kelab Seni Filem was already in existence, so of course I took the chance and joined up immediately, almost immediately. And then I got to see a lot of films then, because Kelab Seni Filem also had the same objective, to showcase foreign films it was founded by a group of cinephiles, people who are with the same kind of taste and the same kind of desire to disseminate cinema. So when I came back, I over the years I saw a lot of nice films in the Kelab Seni Filem, and then gradually I joined the committee and gradually became secretary, and it was then that I had a chance to exercise my show or put into effect, my liking for films, my interest in films, through selecting films, programming films, preparing the programs, program notes. Oh, that was very nice, very instructive experience for me, because it gave me a chance to delve deeper into cinema criticism, reviews, and also a lot of styles that I was exposed to. So it was really an adventure, in that sense, a continuation of an adventure, but in a different kind of role, different kind of action. So then I gradually became the president, and then when that happened, I also had a chance to broaden the scope of our activities, because there were 2 points in this regard. Firstly, I was also involved in a Pan-Asian organization called NETPAC, NETPAC, which stands for Network for the Promotion of Asian Cinema. And this group was founded first in New Delhi in India, and the founder, Aruna Vasudev, it was actually through initially sponsorship of UNESCO that it was set up. And then we got going, and the main aim of NETPAC is to promote Asian cinema, especially the lesser known of Asian films, new directors with their first or second films. And then we helped to introduce these films to a number of festivals, because the mechanism for doing this was to give an award, the so-called NETPAC Award, at a number of film festivals, and gradually the number or the list of film festivals grew. At the highest point, we gave the NETPAC Award in festivals like Berlin, especially the forum section of the Berlin Film Festival, and then Rotterdam. Rotterdam was very much into Asian cinema with some great programmers, and Singapore, of course, and then Busan, and in France, not so much, but later in France, we managed to introduce films, help to spread films in some smaller festivals. But at one time, we were also involved in one edition of Cannes Festival. I think it was the what they call Directors Fortnight or something, because in Cannes, apart from the main program, there are a few side programs, and it was at one of these that I remember I organized a forum on Asian cinema there, and that was my first time in Cannes, actually. Very excited. So actually, yeah, we managed to increase the presence of the NETPAC Award at some major film festivals, and when I managed to do that, when that happened, it coincided with the emergence of the Malaysian New Wave, the Malaysian so-called independent cinema. People like Ho Yu Hang, Tan Chui Mui, what they call Amir Muhammad, and then Liu Sing Tat, James Lee, Wu Ming Jin. So when they, it was a lucky coincidence, because when they came up, they made nice films, And then we in the club also help to promote their films at these festivals. So it was like a very nice event because I remember very clearly that we presented or introduced these films to Berlin, to Rotterdam, and of course to other parts of Europe also. So in that sense, Kelab Seni Filem in that sense, extended its original function, expanded. I mean, so it was, but it was all in the interest of films, cinema, all for the love of cinema. Now, talking about the Malaysian Public Library Research and Development Center, this one is actually separate from my film connections because I'm a librarian by training also. I have some funny interest, and basically I'm a history major. I'm interested in culture, including film, books, and so on. And I also was, while working in Help University, I was an editor. So I organized some film events there also, among them the European Film Festival. The early editions especially of the European Film Festival were held in Help University in Damansara. And then this was followed by the Ibero-American Film Festival, basically Latin American film festival. So it was a very exciting period because we contributed quite a bit to the cultural life of KL through cinema, apart from other things, but mainly through cinema in that place, in Help University. Yeah, so when I left Help in July last year, I was offered this job of managing the Malaysian Public Library Research and Development Center. Basically, what this center does is to promote Chinese culture and history to mainly English-educated people, families, and their children, and so on. Because the premise is that we feel that many Malaysians, they are gradually losing their cultural habits, cultural practices, including religion. It's not anybody's fault, but it's just the way that things go, I mean, modern development, modernization, there's so many influences on people's life nowadays, globalization and so on. So we feel that something must be done, to not only remind people, but actually to reactivate, rejuvenate their interest in Chinese history, Chinese culture. But our aim, so we plan to do this through many kinds of activities. So the library is just one part of it. At the moment, we have a largely Chinese collection of about 60,000 books.
Wow.
But we aim to increase the range to include English books in English, because when it comes to Chinese culture and history, the range, the size of the collections, in English is tremendous. Tremendous, really mind-boggling. And I happen to be, because I'm a book collector myself, and I've been following, Chinese history and culture, especially history. So I know a fair bit about, I keep in touch, with publications, with books currently being published in these two areas, history and culture. So I can fairly say that I have some interests which I can put into practice, in developing this library. And we hope to make it some place where people can really get to acquaint or reacquaint themselves with Chinese topics. And we aim to be a very active center, and we are going to encourage people to be participants. So it's not just a cultural center where there's a collection of books and you come and see and borrow and read. Maybe to us that's not being active. I mean, although that may help, but it's not the thing that we would like to see. So we plan to organize many activities, programs. For example, classes in Chinese, learning Chinese language, including classical Chinese, including sessions in appreciation of Chinese literature, poetry, classes in Chinese calligraphy, and also there's so many things that you to do and learn, and including, of course, celebrations of Chinese festivals. Because as you know, in the Chinese calendar year, there's so many events that take place, so many things are being celebrated, and this is one thing that we would want to engage people in, the so-called English educated people, because we want to get them to know how to enjoy celebrating, for example, the Mid-Autumn Festival, lanterns, mooncakes, and also there's so many other events anyway, especially over Chinese New Year, because there's so many family-oriented activities that can be held. So there's a wide range of activities, and including also the fact that when we mention that that we aim to promote Chinese history and culture, it does not mean totally Chinese, like exclusively Chinese. No, because we are being in Malaysia, we aim to be inclusive. Because how? Because, for example, Chinese, Malay, then Peranakan. Peranakan culture is amazing, and it's really something that the ordinary person is not aware of. But there's so many things happening. For example, recently, I think about 2 months back, there was a big Peranakan festival, Pesta Peranakan, that was held in Penang. And we got in touch with people, and this guy called Cheong Wong, who is an activist, a cultural activist. He's very active in the Penang heritage scene. He's become our resource person also. So we plan to have our own Pesta Peranakan in KL, and then we'll be turning to him for help and for context, which is already he's already done actually. So Peranakan, and then there's not only Peranakan Chinese, there are also Peranakan Indian and Arab. So there's so many facets.
So if you want to celebrate all of Peranakan's festivities and Chinese, you're going to be a party center basically instead of a library.
Yes, yeah.
But it's good. It's going to be a very nice, active place if you're looking to attract people to be more active and engaged. I believe this is the way to go, performing arts and, to include the people. But so to go back to cinema, I was wondering, in a very simple manner, so you have watched, I don't know, thousands of movies now. What would be, it's a hard question, what would be the 3 crucial elements which make a good movie, in your opinion?
Yeah, film watching, like all other cultural activities, is very subjective, because it all boils down to how a work of art or creation impacts you, affects you, influences you, and how you react to it. And for me, in my young days, when I used to watch only Hollywood films, of course, the main criterion was action. The good, the bad action, who wins in the end, that kind of thing. So it was a rather like a narrow way to judge, to access films. But then over the years, you become more selective, more picky, more critical. And so today I can say that what influences me to like a film is the first impression. Visually, the visual impact must be there. But by visual impact, I do not mean exotic camera work, colors and settings, but lighting is very important. And it's how the director sets up the scene, to tell the story through that scene as the scene progresses. So visually, the visual element is very important. Then secondly, emotionally, how the film strikes a chord, with me. With me meaning what am I interested in? Basically, I'm interested in socio-cultural and political issues, especially those aspects that do not get shown or do not get disseminated because of the domination of the mass media. So it's a struggle always, to be able to get an alternative view. So, in that sense, for me, it's like getting more and more narrow, in my...
So cinema helps to broaden one's opinion and understanding of social issues.
Right, yes. And also, because I help to program films, I also, while watching a film, I would also like to assess whether other people would be interested in that film. And if not, then how can I make that film of interest, to people? So it's like me judging a film, something that I like and something which I think other people would like. So I would like to introduce them, and when the time comes, when the chance occurs, to program it, to include it in the Kelab Seni Filem programs. And then another element I would say is how the film is treated by the director. Storyline is of no interest. It's not that important. It's the theme, and how the director treats the theme, of course, in his own personal way, and whether he succeeds in that or not. Success meaning whether he's able to use all the elements in his control to put all of them together, and into a film that's finally represents a creative and critical success.
Thank you. Very, very compelling. Yeah, and I like the that you mentioned the action at first. It's true that Hollywood or those mainstream movies, between the dual contrast of the good and the bad, and it's also a very compelling point to make because it's universal. I mean, it's been going on for centuries. This those books with
yes,
a lot of action too, and
yes.
Now it's in cinema as well.
Yes,
but
maybe I could also add that when watching, when you watch one kind of film, especially like Hollywood, you get a lot of stereotypes, which you later discover are stereotypes, and they like you are like brainwashed or like persuaded to think a certain way. So as a reaction to that, this interest in other kinds of films also help to redress the balance.
Okay, I see. And so going back to your point regarding programming movies for others, I find it very interesting, and I find that it's a very altruistic way to approach cinema, because you not only watch the movies for yourself, but also thinking about the potential audience who could also watch this movie afterwards. And it's something that we've been doing here at the Alliance Française for the upcoming French Film Festival. which is resuming after 2 years, and we'll be back beginning of June in Kuala Lumpur and then 3 other cities across Malaysia. And so talking about French cinema, it was impossible for me not to ask you this question because I know you really like French movies too. So according to you, what makes French cinema so specific worldwide? And if you could pick 3 French movies, which will they be?
You know, talking about French films, there's a certain fascination, with them, allure, fascination, style. I hate to use the word artistic, but the more artistic ones are like, they're so understated. And the directors managed to say something, with almost like effortlessly. So that aspect I appreciate very much. But then, of course, I managed to see others also. For example, others like that are more like forceful, in their impact and the messages. But I think in the area of cinema, I think French films have a certain special appeal. It's not just the acting. It's like, for example, when there's a nude scene, in a French film, it's like, hey, what's the big deal? It's also natural, so part of the story, And I've watched many of such films, and I really was. I note that particular aspect. So when people talk about censorship, and people talk about the need to censor nude scenes and nudity, whatever. So why do you choose to emphasize the nudity part? Don't you have other things to evaluate a scene or director's style? What is it? Why is the scene there in the first place? Why did the director choose to shoot it or set it up, in that particular way? So there you are. So okay, now when I talk about French films, I must credit the Alliance Française for making a major contribution to my understanding and appreciation of French cinema. Right in this hall, I've come so many times. I think I can't remember now. Maybe used to show twice a week, and I used to drive over after dinner at home. I used to stay not very far away, drive here, and then sit and enjoy the films. At that time, they were 35mm films, and I remember the projection room back there. And I also remember meeting friends, and of course enjoying the cafe, what they serve there. And I also managed to, because of my connection, I must mention this because when I was working in Help University at that time had a small office. Alliance Française had a small office there.
Yes.
And then one day, I needed to contact somebody in Cannes because we were doing a joint program with Cannes, and I needed to talk to somebody, and I couldn't speak French. So I asked that lady, I think Beatrice, her name. She came and I asked her to please translate for me. I need to talk to somebody in Cannes. And she did. And after that, she got to know more about the club. And what she did in the end was she got together both parties, and we signed a memorandum of understanding, or MOA or MOU. And this is how the collaboration between club and Alliance Française came about.
Thanks to this lady,
yes.
Beatrice.
Beatrice, I can't remember.
Oh.
I think Beatrice Fletcher, I think her name.
Okay.
And I used to joke with her. I'd say, I used to call her, instead of calling her Beatrice, I used to call her Beatrice.
Beatrice.
And then also, there's one other thing that I need to mention. I remember we used to help to introduce Malaysian independent cinema to film festivals. But there was one time when the Centre Pompidou in Paris organized a retrospective of Malaysian independent cinema, and I was invited there to introduce, to talk something about. I still remember Yasmin Ahmad's film then. Oh, it was quite an experience. Oh, that was really great, and I remember that was held after the Rotterdam Film Festival. So after Rotterdam, I just
You went to Paris.
Went across to Paris by train and then Centre Pompidou.
So we talked about the specifics of French cinema. Could you give us 3 titles of French movies? Or if it's too complicated, we can. If you can't choose, we can switch to the next question.
This is no problem because there's so many nice ones to select from. So, I mean, I wouldn't say my 3 favorite, but the ones that have made a very deep impression, one of them was Les Enfants du Paradis, especially Arletty.
Arletty.
I saw it right here.
Wow.
Long film, I enjoyed it tremendously. Another one that I would put very high on my list is 400 Blows by Truffaut.
Les 400 coups.
That's right. That impressed me a lot. And in that film, it's a real film lover's film, Truffaut, Truffaut, in his young days, he was crazy about cinema. And there was one scene in that film where this boy, I think, reaches his hand through the gate in a cinema and pulls out a poster. And this was exactly what Truffaut did in his young days. So there's a lot of resonances, references to cinema. So it was great. Another film that I was very impressed by is it's called Indigene, directed by Rashid Bosharev. It's basically, the theme is about how it's actually like a homage, to North African soldiers who were conscripted to fight on the side of the Allies, the French, against the Germans, in Europe. And I was very impressed because at the end, it was like acknowledge the fact that North African soldiers played a part, in the defeat in fighting against Germany.
Yeah, and it was. I think there was a scandal in Cannes when the movie was released. I don't remember quite well, but there has been some yeah.
Yes, but the film was so well done. It's really excellent film. The direction, the action scenes, realism, very realistic.
So you know a great deal about Malaysian cinema as well. What are the main characteristics of Malaysian cinema in your opinion, and what would you wish for the young and emerging Malaysian directors, actors, and all of those who make cinema possible nowadays?
Okay, I was very impressed by the emergence of this Malaysian independent group of filmmakers. People who had a different vision and wanted to make films their own way. And it so happened that many of them are Chinese. And this fitted into the cultural scene because in Malaysian Chinese culture, there was hardly any cinema or films, that were produced by the Chinese community. Whereas in other cultural forms, like books, for example, is different. So it was a very welcome sign, a very welcome advent, of Malaysian films, mainly made by Malaysian Chinese directors. But again, like I said before, it was not mainly about them being Chinese and promoting or reflecting Chinese culture, but they also collaborated with with Indians, with Malays, and they all collaborated together. That's the wonderful thing about this in Malaysian indies, because in the early days when they were like working on very restricted budgets, sometimes zero budget, and you see that the indies, Malays, Chinese, Indians, they were helping each other in different roles. Photographer, scriptwriter, or whatever, producer. And it was really amazing, to see them. Now that group, of course, has now matured. They have become established, and they have left their mark. And now new generation of independent filmmakers are following them. But I think they are on the right track, because basically their films are like a reaction to commercial cinema, because they would like their own their own creativity to be featured, to be seen in these films. So it's like their personal mark, their own creativity to be reflected in these films. And I just feel that they need more support, because filmmaking, as you know, needs money, and the more you have at your disposal, the bigger the budget you have, the more you can do, to expand the scope of the film and the attractions of the film. But again, I think this process is not that simple. First, you have to establish yourself. You have to make yourself recognized. And this was actually how the first generation of Malaysian indie filmmakers started. They make their own films. They got their films recognized. They got their films shown to a wider audience, including international. And then gradually, when they have when they establish their credibility, more people would want to support them, would want to fund them, for example. So now the same goes for the new generation. They have to establish themselves first. Establish themselves. What do you mean by that? You cannot establish yourself just by putting your feet down and then standing where you are and so on. What I mean is that I think it's very important for filmmakers, especially because filmmakers are creative people. It's very important for them to be exposed to a wide variety of films.
So it starts from...
It's back. It's a full circle, So it's like you want to be creative, you read more books, you get in contact with more ideas, a great variety of ideas, see more films, and you challenge yourself with other things, through other things. In that way, you improve and then you mature. Voila.
Super. We have the recipe to become creative. So to end on a very quick note, I'm going to ask you just a quick set of questions, and no need to think too much. You just, it's snap answers. So, Yasmin Ahmad or Agnès Varda?
Both.
Very good answer.
I've met Agnès Varda before, and the one where it's about a documentary about market in a market where what's the title? Oh, I love that film so much, and we met. I think I was once in France, met a very nice lady,
You were there during the...
No, not during that filming. Not
Okay.
during that. But later, I'm not only me, but I met up with her.
Okay.
Yes.
Super. What a chance. Nouvelle Vague or Cinéma Vérité?
Well, actually, both, because they're both different styles. And I love documentaries, you know. This is something that really drives me mad, you know, documentaries. And we're going to try to look for some very exotic documentaries to show, you know, from Europe, from Latin America soon.
Great. Wow. I'm excited. 35 millimeters or IMAX?
IMAX is a bit far-fetched, a bit quite an impossible, difficult dream. So 35 mil is like, it's no more Alliance Française, you know. Those were the days when we watched a lot of 35 mil films. Oh, by the way, I should not forget that at that time, Alliance Française, or the French embassy, had a large, big collection of 16 millimeter films library in Bangkok.
Oh, wow.
And we borrowed many films from there to show in the club. Sometimes after Alliance, I will come and carry the films to be shown in a club later.
Wow. Hollywood or Bollywood? Neither.
Well, both have got their influences, and you can't ignore both of them, you know, because they've left a mark on filmmaking. I mean, I don't believe in running down Hollywood because they have performed a function, satisfied a need. It's Hollywood. Bollywood, in terms of Bollywood, they have also really, it's like opening your eyes and the creativity, and it makes you really appreciate what you can do with your body and your limbs and your legs and your eyes and your face, you know, that kind of thing. It's really expressions. It's pushing the boundaries of expression.
Very impactful.
Yes,
usually.
right,
yes,
right.
Yes. Well, thank you very much, Tok Chong. It was a real pleasure to have you with us today. I hope that you will keep on striving to bring to the Malaysian audiences unique movies and documentaries. À très vite. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks for the chance to come back to Alliance Française again. Very nostalgic. And we look forward to working with the embassies, European Union, unique, including France, of course, and also the other embassies. Thank you very much for this chance, Asma.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. If you had a good time and want to listen to more podcasts, don't hesitate to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or visit our website www.alliancefrancaise.org.my.